What up, everybody? It's time to do another knife review, and I have to say, for the first time, I'm pretty sad about this review. As you can see from the title, this is on the Ganzo F7412 carbon fiber, and you know what? I was really excited to get this knife. I've developed this. I don't know if you would say love, but I've really developed this appreciation for Ganzo knives and what they offer. And I'm a little disappointed in this example. I'm going to say up front, it's still a good knife. It's still worth the money, but I'm a little bit disappointed in it. So let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at this first. Here we go, the 7412 carbon fiber. Alright, now let's do a little explanation of Ganzo's model numbering. The actual model of this is the F741. Alright, they use a 3-digit system to denote the model number. In this instance is 741. The fourth number, the 2, actually denotes the blade finish, which in this case is stone washed. Alright, now if it would have been a 7411, that would be a satin finish blade. A 7413 would be a black coated blade. So the 1 denotes satin, the 2 denotes stone wash, and the 3 denotes a coated blade. Now, the 7412 is a flat handle scale model. Okay, it is totally flat scales. There is a second model, and that has a P designator on it. That's as exampled by this model right here that I've already reviewed. That's the 7413P. The 3 standing for a coated blade, and the P standing for the sculpted and radiused handle scales in G10. Other than that, you're looking at the same profile of blade, same profile of handle. I'm sorry, get that back in frame. And overall, this very same knife. In fact, if you are a fan of Birdshot 4's channel, you have seen they've taken these exact 2 knives and they've done a scale swap on it. Put the carbon fiber scales on this knife so it would be murdered out with the black hardware and black blade. Because you can, you know, the scales are interchangeable. So there's a little explanation of how Ganzo does their model numbering and designators for blade finishes, and a little bit about the difference between this model, the flat scale model, and the rounded sculpted scale models. Alright, now this is standard Ganzo construction. Actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and do our specs, get that boring stuff knocked out. You're looking at a 3 5/8 inch or 9 1/4 centimeter blade length. Blade stock thickness, I got 129 thousandths or 3.26 millimeters. Blade width at the widest, 1.06 inches or 27 millimeters. Handle length of right at 4 3/4 or 12 centimeters. Handle thickness of 494 thousandths or 12.56 millimeters. Handle width of 1.13 inches or 28.94 millimeters. A closed width of 1.38 inches or 35.05 millimeters. Overall length is right around 8 3/8 of an inch or 21 centimeters. And the weight is 5.01 ounces or 142 grams. Alright, let's get into materials here. This is pretty much, as far as materials go, it's a standard Ganzo build. Blade steel, 440C. You can see that I did resharpen this knife, and I'll talk about that when we talk about the blade itself. But their 440C is pretty tough. It's been tested and it performs pretty well. I like 440C. Now the handle is their carbon fiber over G10 laminate for the scales. It is carbon fiber. It's like a single layer of woven carbon fiber laminated to, I don't know if you can see the lamination line. It's a very thin layer of carbon fiber laminated to G10. It gives you the look of the carbon fiber. It gives you the strength, the cost reduction of the G10. The G10 is slightly heavier than carbon fiber, so you don't really get the weight reduction of carbon fiber, but you do get that look at a lower price point. Now I will say this, Ganzo's carbon fiber, to me the grain, the fiber does not pop quite as well, and I don't think that's the quality of the carbon fiber itself. The weave is actually nice, but the surface finish itself reflects light off of it, and that interferes with the chatoyance of the carbon fiber, the way the carbon fiber itself reflects light. You get the epoxy resin that they use, you can see right here, you're getting a lot of light reflection off of that. So it keeps the carbon fiber, I don't know if it cuts down on the reflectiveness of the carbon fiber, or it just sort of hides that under sort of a sheen or a glare from that surface finish. I wonder if you took some steel wool and totally did a rub down and a satin finish on this, if it would actually improve the looks of the carbon fiber. And I may do that on this model just to try. And that's one good thing about Ganzo knives. They're $20 or less. You can do that kind of stuff. It doesn't hurt you. Alright, so these carbon fiber G10 laminate scales are over steel frames. They are not weight relieved in any way on either side, and they are fairly substantial steel liners. That's where you get that 5-ounce weight. And it's a totally open build. You've got up front here, your connecting point, of course, is the pivot, and then you've got a pressed in or trapped stop pin. Back towards the center here, you've got a machined standoff, so it's not just a plain barrel. And then at that crazy butt location down here in the flat of the butt, you've got another standoff. And just like in the 7413P that I did the review on, that's sort of, to me, that's a crazy location for a standoff, but it seems to work. It's a very stiff frame. There's no flex. I mean, you would have to get in there and really put some pressure on it to get any flex at all. Alright, so pretty standard build. Stonewash on 440C. They're carbon fiber G10 laminate over steel liners. In this instance, this carbon fiber model is not as dressed up as the ones with the blue hardware, and I kind of like this. I like the blue hardware, but it does, sometimes it seems a little showy. And if you just want that carbon fiber look, but you don't want the blue hardware, detracting away from it or drawing attention away from it, then this is a good option. And they also have this sort of dress in the 729 model, which is their copy of the paramilitary 2. You can get it in this finish also with the carbon fiber and silver hardware with a satin or stone washed, and I'm pretty sure the coated blade also. So if you don't like the blue hardware but you do like the carbon fiber, this is a good option along with the G729. Now you can see all the hardware is done in silver. It's got their standard sort of narrow spoon shaped pocket clip, and it is fully polished. It's a great fill-in pocket clip, and I like this pocket clip. I've not had any issues with it, other than the same thing I always say, I wish it was a little deeper mount. But you can see down on the butt end of this with that placement of that standoff and this big lanyard hole that you could easily get 42 strands of paracord through. There's just no room to deep mount that pocket clip. I don't put lanyards on my knives, so I actually could do without that lanyard hole personally, but a lot of people like them, and they're sort of de rigueur so for pocket knives, tactical knives, you know, tactical folders. Alright, the next thing is the fit and finish. Now, everybody is waiting to hear what I'm disappointed in this knife. And this knife is absolutely got the worst fit and finish of any Ganzo that I have bought so far. And this is about the 6th Ganzo that I've bought. Now that said, this knife is still well worth the money, because the fit and finish issues that I am looking at are sort of not nitpicky, but they're fit and finish issues that do not affect the overall performance of the knife. The first one is this. If you will look, I hope you guys can see right here, if you can see that liner, this knife apparently was dropped before the handle scales were put on, and the corner of the liner here is bent in. Alright, it does not affect the centering of the blade. It's not the whole end of the liner is bent. It's not throwing off the pivot geometry or anything. It's just bent in, and it actually looks like it got dropped onto that corner before the scale was put on. So there is a very slight gap between the scale and that liner there, and I don't know if you guys can pick that up or not. It's very subtle. You may get it from that angle right there. It's very subtle. It's something that only I am going to notice in this knife. I could hand it to 20 different people. They'll never notice that. Alright, the second thing is, and I don't know if you can pick this up at all, the back of this scale has a big long, I don't know what it is. It's not a scratch. It's not, you can't feel anything. I think it's an inclusion in the laminate. So, you know, that's, and most of the time you can't even see it. I mean, you look at it from the flat or from other angles, you can't see it. You've actually got to angle it the right way to see that. But that's one of those things that we notice as owners, especially on a new knife. Now, the third thing and the biggest thing about this, the grind on this knife is the wankiest grind of any Ganzo I've got. Now, everybody knows when you have a lower cost knife, the more technical aspects of that knife are the ones that are more likely to have an issue. On this knife, there's nothing bad about the blade. It's just sort of a wanky grind. Now I'm going to say, first of all, it had the worst edge of any Ganzo that I've bought. The entire length of the cutting edge was totally not apexed. You could take and press it into your finger, you know, hard, and just saw back and forth, and it wouldn't cut anything. It was totally non-apexed. Now I went and I you know, of course, I resharpened it, and that brought out another issue. Now I put this on the KME, which is a clamp system, a controlled angle system. So it will show flaws in the primary grind. Now, one thing that I noticed that I hope I can get here is, do you see this line right here going up the blade? Do you see that? Alright, I don't know if you can, but it is on both sides, and it is obvious in hand if you know what you're looking for. And what that is when you grind a blade on a grinder, alright, for those of you that have made knives, you'll understand immediately what I'm talking about. But for those of you that haven't, this is a technique that you use to taper the tip of your blade. When you grind, you're going to grind across the belt, and when you get towards the tip, you're going to roll the knife out, okay, to taper this on the grinder. So you're going to grind straight, roll that out against the grinder belt. And you're going to do it on both sides. Okay, straight, 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 roll it out on the grinder, and you're tapering the tip. What's going on this knife is it has a, I'm going to say the person that was sharpening it was just not that experienced of a sharper. The transition for the taper is not soft. You should never be able to see where they do that taper as a fixed line. And this one, what they've done is they've, you know, flat, 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 taper, taper, taper. Okay, just instantly at an angle to taper it, and they've done that on both sides. Now, does that affect the blade? No, not really. It's just sort of a less refined grinder technique. And to me, it was obvious because I've made knives, I've ground knife blades out on a grinder. So it was obvious to me. Now, like all the Ganzos, it was thick on the edge, thicker on the edge than I like, so I reprofiled. And you could see I had to do a lot of work down here. And even though I taped off the plunge, I had to work down here so long. I got fatigued, even though I got up away from this knife and just walked off for a little bit. So I got up into the plunge itself, into this sharpening choil. And on a $20 knife, I don't mind that at all. But I had to get, it was just seriously thick down around the plunge. Really, the primary grinds are pretty decent on it, and I don't think any of this is going to affect the final use of it. It's razor sharp now. It took an edge well, it took a polish well. So, those were the issues I had with this knife. Now, I love this design. I love it in the 7413P. I just love this overall profile. It's just the perfect size for a big everyday carry, you know, with a 3 5/8 inch blade and 4 3/4 inch handle. But it's comfortable. It's not overly wide. It's not overly thick. It's just a very comfortable handle shape. You've got a nice decent choil up here, a bird's beak at the butt end, so when you lock onto that, you're not going to slide up on the blade or back off of the handle. You do have a decent thumb ramp here with some very well done. The jimping is very clean and very well done. It is a little soft. The edges are a little soft, and it doesn't grab your skin that well. And I believe that's more due to, you know, after the jimping was ground, the blade was final ground, everything, they had to stone wash this blade. And stone washing tends to soften all edges. And I believe that's what's happened here. Not the worst jimping, but not the most useful. It is a great placement and a good decent thumb ramp. Now, you do have dual thumb studs, no issues with those at all. No issues with opening the knife. You know, let's see if I can, dadgummit. I suck at doing that in front of the camera, guys. I got a little bit limited space to be flinging the blade open. But it is very smooth. This one, the satin finish blades and the stonewash finish blades, I think, are the smoother of the Ganzos as far as their access lock copy goes, because the tang of the blade that rides against that access lock pin under spring pressure tends to be a little smoother than it does on the finished, the coated blades. I think the coating that they use does add some texture, even though it looks smooth to you and I. That metal to metal contact, I think it does add a little bit of texture. So I've got no issues with the lockup at all. It's smooth, it's easy, there's no blade play. I've had very good luck out of Ganzo's copy of the Axis lock, or what they're calling their G-lock. Now, the overall on this knife, I think, let me see how I want to put this. I think that the $20 that I spent for this knife I think it's still worth $20, and I do recommend this model. I think we all have to be realistic about Ganzo knives. They're going to have little bitty flaws that are more refinement issues than they are fatal flaws. Nothing in this knife that I've pointed out as a flaw is what I would consider a fatal flaw that makes it less of a knife. It's not less safe, it's not less usable, it's just less refined. And that's what you see. That is the difference in a $20 knife that's a hell of a deal and a $200 knife. The $200 knife is, regardless of who it comes from, whether it's Benchmade or Spyderco or Zero Tolerance or WE knives or Kaiser knives, it just doesn't matter. Those knives are going to be on a different level of refinement as far as fit and finish goes. And of course also a different level of materials. But even though I have found those flaws in this, and I'm nitpicking some of them, I still recommend this model, and I will probably buy at least one more of these. I really, really like this knife design, this profile, this handle shape, this blade shape, this high flat grind on this drop. You know what? I would almost consider that a spear type of blade profile, but in a drop point grind with no swedge to speak of. It's just this high flat grind that's rolled up the belly here, the blade radius, towards the tip. It gives you a high tip. Okay, you can see the tip is sort of high in the center line of the knife. It is, in my opinion, a more tactical design of a drop point rather than utilitarian. Now, you've still got plenty of belly here to do utilitarian work with. You've got a nice section of flat blade length here. You can get plenty of utilitarian work out of this. But what I'm saying is, in a pointier drop point like this, this is not a knife that you're going to take deer hunting to help you skin out a deer. I would really want a less pointy drop blade with maybe a little more belly rather than this sort of stabby looking drop point. It's a more stabby, pointy drop point than some designs. Now, but overall, you know, given the issues that I've seen on this knife, and again, none of them are fatal flaws, it has a lot going for it and a very good design, a very good handle profile and blade profile. You know, it's just a very good sort of tactical-ish everyday carry design. Now, are you going to spend $20 on a knife that's got those little nitpicky flaws on it? And I'm going to tell you right now, I've owned knives costing up towards $1,000. The most expensive knife I ever had was a custom made by a very, very well-known maker. I'm not going to mention his name. It was a fantastic knife. It had more fit and finish flaws on it than this knife does. Alright, that was a very expensive, approaching $1,000 custom knife by a very good maker. So typically I can find flaws on any knife. In fact, I've never owned a knife that did not have flaws on it, whether it's a custom knife, a mid-tech, a high-end production knife, these lower-end knives, it doesn't matter. You're going to be able to find some flaws. These flaws do not affect the performance of the knife, so I'm going to still say it's worth $20. Now, if you're the type of person that cannot live with that, then Ganzos are going to be a crapshoot for you. They're going to be a dice toss because you're looking at $20. All right, and at the $20 price point, even though these are fantastic deals and very well made with great materials, they still do have those little flaws. If you are OCD about that type of thing and it just drives you nuts, you may want to take that into account. But if you're like me, you have a realistic view of what you're going to get at $20. You can resharpen a knife if you have to. And you don't mind those little fit and finish issues that really you'd have to look for to even find, then these knives still continue to be a great deal. All right, guys. Well, once again, I want to thank you for taking the time to view one of my videos. I want to say God bless all of you and have a great day.